lecturer in the philosophy department at University of Lagos. Good morning and thanks again for coming.
Thank you. Good morning.
Well, looking at this particular issue, by now we thought this would have been over, but yesterday was the icing on the cake, because I also recall Nasir Isafage saying that once evidence is shown that that money has been paid, the strike will be called off. We saw the document yesterday.
Well, it is possible, the money has been paid from the evidence shown. But I don't think the issue was entirely that of, paying the 200 billion into the CBN account, whatever. There were issues attached to it. That was just one of them. And I think a very fundamental one at that. But there were equally other issues. One is the issue of the agreement being due for renegotiation in 2014. There's equally the understanding clause of, non-victimization, and those are some of the...
Which we have been told should be taken for granted?
Yes, ordinarily, even this meeting, it should have been taken for granted. At least we've met with the president. But we are looking at, they say the best way to judge a man is through his antecedent. We have seen, government, officials acting in a particular manner. That is why a lot of these issues are not easily, or going to be easily taken for granted. Otherwise, on a normal day, yes, at that level where you have a commitment.
Government officials in this administration?
Come again?
The government officials in this administration?
Of course. When you say government officials in this, which administration are you talking about? Government is a continuum. This president was a vice president when the agreement was negotiated and signed in 20. As a matter of fact, he was the one who was in charge of it. And now becoming the president, one expected that the simplest thing to do would have just been to take off from there. But that has not been the issue.
Dr. Ekere, ASU's lost the sympathy from Nigerians. I mean, it's as though you're not looking at the reality of things.
Yeah, I don't think what ASU actually went into was to, secure or appeal for the sympathy of Nigeria. ASU was simply trying to make a mark that this country needs to move forward. If it was all about sympathy, we would have called off this strike long ago. But the way we are looking at what obtains elsewhere, that we need to, of course, we have the capacity to increase the facilities. So, what we'll be looking at is a situation whereby we get to that level where we have the kind of facility, the kind of environment where academic activities can flourish.
So how do you, moving forward, let's say I want to move forward, you destroy the building because you want to move forward?
No. This has nothing to do with destruction. All right? There's no iota of destruction in this.
6 months.
But again, don't forget equally that you cannot erect a building without at least doing some damage to the soil. How do you build? You must dig a foundation. All right? So if you call that destruction, I think it's a reasonable destruction. Trying to build, try to consolidate on a foundation that can sustain you. I don't think that is really a problem. A lot of time we overemphasize the issue of, look at the students as if we are thinking of just today. The students you are talking about, perhaps are just about 5 levels. 100, 200, 300, down to 500. So at the time you finish with these ones, what happened to the others who are coming in? So we are looking at something that can last, much longer than the current, set of students you have. But a lot of times we try to overemphasize the current students. We are equally suffering this predicament. Don't forget that we are not being paid to. So when you see, at the same time, ASU members are not children, they are parents too. We are all suffering it. I've always made the point that even the chairman of UNILAG chapter has a daughter who is a 100-level student. She's at home as well. So it's not as if somebody is trying to oppress, people out there while yours are enjoying. That's not the situation. But I think we need to understand properly. And I want to give a lot of, high regards to somebody like Tunji Abayome, who was on a channel yesterday. And he was able to, he clearly understood the issues. And I think that Nigerian public should be able to, live up to those issues as well.
I'm glad that you watched the episode, yesterday's edition. Yeah. I don't know if you saw your colleague here, Dr. Orawo,
yes,
who also, tried to moderate between ASU and the federal government. He drew a distinction, in phases of the strike and said that a host of ASU members, in fact, all ASU members were solidly behind ASU until that meeting they held with the president in November. And, according to him, he said the expectation of some was that we would have given the president, and indeed, all other government officials, to mess up themselves, giving them a chance to go back on their word and not do what they say they have, what they have promised to do. What do you have to say to that?
Well, in the first instance, I don't want to join issues with Dr. Awora. Yeah, he has expressed his own opinion. But if you were at the Congress we held yesterday, you will know better what the situation really portends. You see, but again, on the issues you just raised, that the position he canvassed, yeah, I don't think, there has been any withdrawal of support or, solidarity with ASU. And neither is there any division in ASU, with respect to the meeting with the president. And to say that, yeah, having met with the president, it would have been more reasonable for ASU to suspend the strike. Yes, on a normal condition, that should be. But then, like I've just told you, I said that you need to judge a man based on where he is coming from. We've had situations. But again, is it really difficult putting pen on paper? If we had a meeting, what would be wrong with taking minutes of that meeting? What would be wrong with saying, these are the resolutions? Okay, let's itemize them. What would be wrong with say, okay, now that we've arrived at this level, let's put our signature on this thing to ensure let it be safe for us that this is what we've agreed on, so that tomorrow you don't chip in something else. What is wrong with that, really? Does that amount to disregard or disrespect to the president? I don't think so. I keep saying at different fora. The other time this Odua Gate issue came up, she was on the entourage of the president to Israel. And what we read was that she was going to sign a bilateral agreement on behalf of the federal government with Israel. If presidents' words are enough, why do they even have to sign agreements? I want to believe that even President Obama do sign agreements. That is the United States. When you enter into a discussion, on a normal day, even the landlord and the tenant, they sign agreements.
So at the end of the day, what you're saying this comes down to is trust for you. You do not believe the government.
It's not a question of whether I believe the government or not. It's a question of the government has not been able to, exhibit, that kind of situation that will warrant a general overwhelming trust. It has shown over time. And even from the meeting they just held, the meeting they held on the 5th of December, there are issues from what was arrived at. And some of those issues are the teething problems we are having with this particular.
Because yesterday, when Dr. Awora spoke, he also talked about how there was a signing sheet, and how majority of lecturers had signed that sheet. In other words, they were going to come back to classrooms, assuming school was going to be, assuming classes were going to start, so to speak. What I'm trying to say is, you talked about the congress that happened yesterday in UNILAG, and he also gave that instance of the sheets that had been signed by majority of lecturers.
Yeah, that is not correct.
That is not correct.
It has not been signed by majority of lecturers. A few persons have signed, but you see, you need to understand why those people even signed. It was not to go back to class. It is simply, okay, a register is presented. If you are a staff of this faculty, put your name on this register. Does that amount to suspending the strike or going to classroom? Has Dr. Awora gone to the class? Has he been there? So it's not a function of, you sign the register and therefore you are not part of the strike. No,
are you saying that there is no sign of weariness, even on part of some members of ASU?
On a general note, the ASU members are not, they are not strike hungry. It's not as if strike is a passion. It is simply because of the kind of environment we found ourselves. That is why. Otherwise, what do we gain from, what do I enjoy in being on strike? When my, my pleasure is in interacting with my students, having an interface with my students. The lady who just left here made mention of people who got into academics simply because they couldn't meet their first, choice of. I got into academics as a choice. My uncle that I lived with while I was an undergraduate was actually the human resource manager of a bank. We had a lot of, issues with that. He said I should serve in this bank. I refused. I said, let the, NYC post me to wherever. As God will have it, I was posted to Agoye, that is Olabisi Onabanjo University. Now, even after the NYC, the man told me he has a slot for me. I told him give it to those who are interested in banking. I don't want to go into banking. So it's a function of choice. It was I wasn't looking for a job, and I waited for this one until it came. So it's not a question of, you could have got your first choice, that's why you got it academics. No, I'm not one of them. There could be. I'm not saying there might not be. There could be. But I'm saying that at least it is on record that the tradition in the academics has always been that the best are retained. It's only of recent that you begin to find, banks paying some good money, and because of the collapse in the system and the kind of, remuneration people get, that people are now so interested in banking and all the rest. Otherwise, the best brains were actually retained as a tradition in academics. Okay. I was to be retained in my department, even to serve, if not for some internal scuffles that came up. So these are some of the issues, and that has been the tradition that has been sustaining the academic sector. But as it is today, you could find that there are no foreigners in the system. That tells you that the system is not attractive. I think these are the problems we are having. Really.
Dr. Ekere, now you said something about your passion being, or your desire to interact with your students.
Of course.
Now that your students have lost 6 months, how do you intend to make up for that?
Well, the students have not actually lost 6 months. When
are
you say
serious?
Lost, yeah. You see, what you could call the lecture outline, all right? I, for one, have actually finished with my outline. All I needed to do was just to do revision with them.
And then they write exams.
Yes.
And when the exams supposed to have ended? When you say
they have lost 6 months,
at what time were the exams supposed to have ended?
We were to have exams in August.
In August?
Yes.
So and between August and September,
yes,
you have been on strike?
Yes.
So now you're coming back. Let's just assume that you're coming back to school this week.
Yes.
Or next week. When would you write the exam?
No, that is left to the university.
When's the next academic session supposed to start?
Well, that is entirely the university management responsibility, not mine now.
And you're still saying students haven't lost time?
They have not. When you say they've lost 6 months, you see, is to say that, okay, of the lecture outline, they will no longer get this one out of it. Every item on the outline, they have been given. All I needed to do is to reverse. There are some who have not finished with that. All they needed to do is to complete it. So they would have seen gained everything on the outline. But if you are talking about the time gained in terms of, okay, by the end of this year, those who are in 100 level are supposed to move to 200 level. It's a different thing entirely. All right? So it's not the same as saying that, okay, they've lost, part of the knowledge they are supposed to acquire.
You talked about, the Congress that held yesterday. What was the resolve at your Congress? The
resolve is that the strike continues until the few things we are saying should be put, properly, are actually properly situated. That's all.
Right now, you've seen one of them.
I have not seen. You see, as far as this issue is concerned, it is the NEC that will actually communicate to us what they have seen. So if the NEC gives us a report that, yes, the 200 billion has been paid, is confirmed, and the other issues have been settled. Already the union at the various branches and their various congresses have actually resolved that the strike should be suspended, provided these conditions. So once those conditions are fulfilled, the next thing is that there will be a NEC meeting.